Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for episode 3 of Surf Sessions. Today, we're talking about the topic of mastering cannabis brand marketing. So today, we're very, very fortunate to have Kevin Moses joining us. I'm going to introduce Kevin in a moment. Kevin is going to give us advice on advertising from the CPG angle of cannabis. So super exciting. Kevin, Verano are one of the biggest MSOs. I would suggest that almost everybody dialing into this call and folks that listen to it subsequently will probably know who Verano are. But for those that maybe don't or aren't aware of the scale and the growth, sanity check me on these. About 140 retail locations now.
Yeah, that's about right.
14 states.
Yep.
10 brands in the house of brands.
Yeah, give or take. That's about you. You've got your stats right.
All right. And then, doing just a hair under $1 billion in revenue. So clearly Verano are one of the biggest companies in the industry, one of the biggest companies in the history of our short industry. And again, just super grateful, mate, and fortunate to have you join us today and impart all your knowledge and wisdom. So thank you again. Kevin, any other additional color you want to add to Verano and what's going on at Verano before we get into the specifics of your background?
Yeah, I think you kind of put the nail on the head. We're standing up a fantastic multi-state operator within cannabis, one of the bigger players in the U.S. and the world, and excited to be leading the product and brand portfolio for our organization. So excited to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, mate, so welcome. Mate, you come from, we'll go back to start here. You come from the traditional CPG world. You've been in the industry now a few years, but your career has spanned Kraft Heinz, Conagra, some of the biggest CPG corporations that we all know and we all love and we all buy and use their products probably daily. Over the past 2.5 years or so, how would you describe the key differences between more established industries and companies, and what your experience has been in cannabis? How does that affect your strategy and your approach? And then maybe what are some of the things you were able to bring across? Because no doubt you've had to, like most of us who have come into the industry, really pivot and change and figure things out. So can you just talk a little bit about your history, what you've learned, what you've brought across, and then the things that you've had to figure out on the fly?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I spent upwards of about 10 years in the traditional food and beverage space. To long-standing behemoths in the industry, and had a fantastic time. At both of those companies, but I was really was yearning to kind of take that experience, but bring it to a more kind of faster-paced, higher growth entrepreneurial industry, and had an opportunity to come join Verano and lead the product and brand marketing at this organization, and was extremely intrigued by applying some of those principles from some of those big behemoths in the traditional CPG space to a very young hungry and up and coming industry, and it's absolutely been that. There at the end of the day, there are a lot of similarities to kind of traditional consumer goods. Where much like I was marketing, coffee or microwave popcorn or frozen foods in my past life, we're marketing cannabis and another consumer good. But, whereas those companies in that industry was, very mature, been around for, years and years with very, very well-established brands and processes. In this industry, we're a very large company, as you mentioned at the beginning, approaching $1 billion in sales. But we were very much at the early stages of the life cycle of our company, and quite frankly the industry in general. So that definitely leads to a lot of differences. I would say that the first thing is there's just a lot less red tape and process kind of within our organization. In traditional food and beverage, these brands have been around for some cases close to 100 years. This company's been around for a long time, and there's this kind of system for everything. Here we're building the systems, we're building the processes. So one, it's great because you can kind of take the best of what you've learned in those big companies and apply it to try to bring the best things to this, new industry, but also not bring the things that kind of bog you down. But with that also, like we're able to be a lot more nimble and fast paced, and talking about innovation specifically, there'd be projects in my past life where it could take 2+ years to commercialize a major initiative. Here we're able to get things from idea to tin market much quicker. So sometimes in a matter of just a couple of months, because we kind of are able to block a lot of those processes and things that kind of drag down the process, slow things down, which is fantastic. I would say another big difference is data. Data is like super established in the big food and beverage space, both from the data that we had as a company, syndicated data that your retailers have. It's very much in its early stages here. A lot of retailers don't have that same amount of sophistication within data. So, we feel like as an organization and one of the biggest players in this industry, that by leveraging data to make decisions, but also to inform our retailers, we can really have a competitive advantage and really, drive growth in this industry. And then I guess the last thing would be, the retail environment is just, very, very different. We're still marketing our products and brands to a group of retailers, but in traditional food, you're spending most of your time speaking to the Walmarts of the world, the Targets of the world, big massive organizations that are very also very process orientated and data driven in their approach. Here in this industry, fortunately we have our own retail stores which we can use as kind of a breeding ground for our products and brands. But then we're also dealing with like a vast assortment of retailers that are, fragmented, vary across each of our states. They're also much earlier in their life cycle, so they might not have that same, process and sophistication that maybe the Walmarts or the Costco's of the world, had in my past life. So, I would say those are probably the biggest differences. But of course, there's, many other differences as well.
Mate, one thing you mentioned there, which I think is interesting, you mentioned less red tape. That's a double-edged sword, or is it more handy than not?
I would say it's definitely more handy than not. I would say that, that it's really liberating that, and by red tape, we of course have a lot of red tape here around compliance and regulations, and it's very regulated in that regard. But the more I was speaking to is more of that kind of like internal red tape. Whereas, in my past life, you would spend, a lot of time, driving alignment, kind of selling your ideas and your initiatives internally to make sure all the right stakeholders were aligned, and then, testing and validating ideas to make sure that they were, really foolproof before bringing them to market.
Yep.
Of course, we have some of that here, but it's much less rigid, and therefore, we're able to kind of act really quickly. We still, of course, want to gain alignment and, make sure all the right parties are all on the same page, but we can do so at a much more rapid pace, which is extremely liberating because, it feels like, when you have an idea or an initiative that you're working on, you can start seeing the impact of that initiative just so much quicker, which is a great feeling to have.
Awesome. That makes sense. Mate, your brands, there's a number of them behind you. Super cool background, by the way, you folks have set up there. I love all that. Some of the brands are there. The biggest brands that most folks are aware of day to day, Essence, Savvy, the Verano brand, probably 3 of the bigger ones. Obviously, you sell them at your retail stores. They're sold at Zenleaf, they're sold at Move, but you're also selling them, and you've just touched on this a little bit, at third-party retailers, right? You're dealing with independent businesses, and you're going in and you're wanting them, whether they're a one-off dispensary or maybe they're another MSO or everything in between, but they're selling your brands, right? So as you focus on them, not so much on what you're doing at Zenleaf and Move, but on those third parties, how do you, what's your strategy for you and your team around, first of all, even identifying the right ones? Let's say you're going into a new state, Ohio, New Jersey, wherever it is, identifying and targeting the right retailers. And then the second part of that is once you've done that, you got to go secure that relationship. And then once you're there, this is a multi-part question. You've then got to acquire new customers, right? Once you're in there, you've got to get the customers to buy Essence and buy Savvy and buy Verano. You've got to drive the revenue and the sell-through, and then you've got to drive the retention and and hopefully get customers for life, because we all know in this nascent industry, from a brand perspective, not too many folks have made up their mind yet on which brand is their brand, right? Not like their coffee brand and their household cleaning brands. So as you go to market and as you go to figure out, the right retailers, and then making sure that there's mutual success, like, what's the strategy there? How do you think about that?
Yeah, no, great question, and I'll try to address it in a couple different parts. So first of all, around thinking about our brands and kind of all the brands in our portfolio, and how do we think about bringing the right brands to the right retailers, and that kind of element of the question. I think very intentionally over the last 2.5 years, we've evolved into much more of like a house of brands strategy. So with that said, historically, we had our flagship Verano brand. We also had, a couple other brands in our portfolio. Encore Edibles, our Avexia brand, which is a more kind of wellness-focused brand. But I would say, we were much more kind of focused on kind of the flagship, and Verano as kind of the lead brand. Over the last 2.5 years, quite intentionally, we've really broadened our array of brands, and also really uniquely positioned them in the market, and tried to be very strategic about how we position them. So, now, again, drawing parallels to the kind of the food and beverage space, a Kraft Heinz isn't necessarily like talking to consumers as Kraft Heinz. They have all these different brands within their portfolio that cater to different consumers and provide different benefits. Very much the same here. We've developed, say within flower and vapes and concentrates. Now we have our Verano Reserve brand, which is our more kind of premium brand catering to those more cannabis aficionados. We have the Essence, which is a little bit more of our mid-tier brand, and then we have a brand Savvy, which has been a huge growth driver for us, offering a little bit more in that like value bulk offering space. So, and then we have similar parallels within the edibles category and some of our other categories as well. So what that gives us is now we have like a toolkit of brands to work with. So as we go into retailers, based on their demographic and their retail strategy, we can, focus on different brands, recommend that they, focus their distribution on either, Savvy if they're catering to maybe a more budget-friendly shopper, or, Verano Reserve if they're going after those cannabis aficionados, which gives us a lot of great flexibility. But then I think the second part was you're asking about, acquiring new customers. And this is very interesting and really challenging in the cannabis space to some extent. We are a little bit restricted in what we can do from a traditional media standpoint. We have access to some media channels, but not all. There's very minimal things that we can do on channels like Google or Facebook or Instagram regarding paid advertising. So some of those like traditional awareness driving tools are not always available to us. They are to some extent, and we're definitely dabbling with them where we can. But beyond that, we have a couple of other avenues that we can really leverage and focus on. One is those third-party dispensary partners, and really making sure that our brands are showing up at their best, within their retail environment. So everything from making sure our packaging is breaking through and in store from a display standpoint, building really provocative and impactful product displays, ensuring all of our digital assets in their stores are top notch, and really driving consumers to think about and become aware of our brands. But even more importantly, to some extent, is what we're doing kind of online through e-commerce. In many of our markets, more than 50% of purchase decisions or purchases are actually pre-orders done via dispensary websites and e-commerce channels, as consumers are essentially pre-ordering and then going into the store to pick up their purchase. With that said, we have a major focus on making sure that our brands and products are showing up with excellence on those e-commerce menus. That we're working with our retail partners to make sure that the right images are showing up, the right descriptions, that our products are being featured at top of menu and we're on promotion and things like that. But then we also leverage some tools to go beyond. With your tools, and specifically we leverage commerce media to actually do paid advertising, on third-party dispensary menus, so that we can feature our specific brand or product, on a banner at the top of the menu, so that the first thing that consumers see when they go and they're in that kind of buying mindset is, our brands, so that they can, ideally learn about them, make them top of mind when they're making those purchasing decisions. And, in our world with some of those other vehicles being a little bit restricted, this becomes, very, very important. And it's also, very measurable and very close to the path of purchase. So, it's a great tool for us.
Yeah, mate. I mean, appreciate you shouting that out. We've loved the first half year or so getting your brands up on commerce media and getting your ads on those retail menus. And as you know, the retailers love it too, because they share in the joy. It's a new revenue stream for them too. So excited to keep rolling that out with you folks and seeing great returns on those. One quick question, Kev, that just came to me is you have Verano as the holding company, for want of a better term, and you have the brand. Is that challenging at all?
Yes and no. I mean, at times it is, especially because, historically we had really, focused on that Verano brand. So there's always a lot of default to like think about, our, main messaging should be around the, the Verano brand, which is also the name of our company and our, in our kind of, one of our flagship brands. But the way that we tend to think about it is, when we're speaking to, our third-party retailers and our partners from a more like B2B standpoint, it is about Verano as a company, and then Verano is one of those brands within that, within our umbrella, and we really focus on Verano and what we can do from a corporate total company standpoint. But when we're thinking about consumers, most consumers, not all, but most consumers don't, they don't know that, they might not know that Savvy and, the Essence and Verano are all, produced by the same company, just like, someone who's buying a, Kraft Heinz product might not realize that, Heinz ketchup and Kraft mac and cheese are produced by the same company. So in that mindset, then we can, focus more on, each of our brands and what they mean to specific consumers, and then use those brands to target, certain types of consumers and make sure that they're all kind of complementing each other. So it actually works pretty well for us, but it's definitely that delineation to how we speak about, it from a, a B2B standpoint versus like a consumer facing standpoint.
Yep. Awesome. Makes sense. So as you're going out there and you're advertising, you're getting customers trying products in new states for the first time. Obviously, over time, you want to have them as lifetime customers. You want their loyalty. I know loyalty is a huge, huge word in any CPG or retail capacity. Certainly, it's quite in vogue within cannabis right now. So speaking of that concept of loyalty, you've got Cabbage Club now, which is Verano's relatively new loyalty program that launched, I think, earlier this year. Very clear on the retail side how loyalty programs support the retail side of things. But can you talk about, just obviously through your lens, how does Cabbage Club specifically help with your initiatives, with the brand side of getting people to try your brands and to become lifetime customers of those brands?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, I couldn't be more excited about the Cabbage Club, and a very unique, membership-based program in the cannabis space, which, as you mentioned, super exciting from a retail standpoint, allowing us to, provide, very unique benefits to, our most loyal shoppers on the retail side of things. But, from a brand and product standpoint, the thing that really excites me is, this kind of gives us this curated group of, what we know are like very loyal cannabis shoppers. They're opting to, sign up for a yearly membership program that, is, very, very attractive, because the benefits that you get are, well outweighing the annual fees for the program. But, we know that by them opting into this, that they're most likely, very loyal consumers that are, going to come back and, shop often. So therefore, from a brand and product standpoint, we have a way that we can address, a group of very, very engaged shoppers, and continue to, turn them into brand loyalists, but also brand advocates. So we're able to reward them by giving them exclusive discounts on our brands and products, or early access to new products, access to different types of events, and also we have an ability to ask them questions and ask for feedback, to really all in an effort to, one, give them benefits from the program, but also from our standpoint, we can learn from them, and therefore adopt our strategy moving forward in some ways to what they're telling us they want and need, so that we can make our brands and products even more impactful for them. And then really they're becoming very like advocates of our brand, and share not just the Cabbage Club with others, but share what they love about our brands and products with others as well. So we feel like it's a very, very attractive, mutually beneficial relationship, and very excited about the success of it so far, and excited about what's to come as well.
Well, I hear you've had lots of early success. I remember also there was some funny banter at one point between one of your executives and someone else about Cabbage Club. It was very, very funny a few months ago, and I thought that I forget who it was from your executive team, but the approach was spot on. It was humorous, lighthearted, smart. I just remember that was, they say no such thing as bad PR. That was really funny, and I think got a lot of people's attention as well. So congratulations on the success so far. Switching gears a bit, Kev, Verano, not everyone has Verano's budgets. I know we all want more as well, including you and I and everybody, regardless of what our marketing budgets are. But the reality is, especially sharing some of those numbers of scale at the beginning of the conversation, not everyone does. There'll be brands on this conversation, there'll be brands listening to this conversation later, and they'll have severely limited budgets. They might just be launching and they're in one state, and they're going out there looking for their first third-party retailers. So if you can put yourself in those shoes for a minute and think about, if you had a really, really limited budget and you still had to get out there and do what you're doing today, where would you focus? Where would you put your time and your investments and your money to drive the best return? And where would you avoid splashing money around in the hopes of success?
Yeah, great question. The first thing that I would think about, and it's this one is not to me shouldn't be that different from if you have an unlimited budget or a very, very limited budget, is that the first focus is just really investing as much time, resources, and dollars as possible into really just developing a best-in-class product and brand portfolio. I think when it comes to marketing, a lot of times folks default to advertising and TV commercials, or billboards, or other kind of like in-your-face social media, or kind of like these more
influencers. I see a lot of that. Influencers,
like,
brand influencers. Yeah.
But in reality, like, the starting point of great marketing is great brands and products. So like, first thing is like, spending as much time and resources as imaginable to make sure that you have really compelling consumer-focused brands, that your products are top-notch, your packaging sings and is attention grabbing to consumers and all that, because without that nothing else really matters. But then beyond that, probably the second thing would be going back to those like third-party retailer relationships. Like, those relationships are invaluable, and investing time, resources and dollars into building really great relationships with your third-party vendors or dispensaries is also paramount, because that we can't sell a product unless our dispensaries get behind it and advocate for it and recommend it to their shoppers. So that would be number two. And then I would say the last piece would be, as it comes to like more of those, like what you think of like the paid media marketing dollars. I think maybe similar to what I mentioned at the beginning, where like people default to like those more, I guess, traditional or like in-your-face channels, like say a billboard or something like that. Those things they're very hard to measure. They're very hard to they're expensive, and they're hard to prove ROI. Wherever you can invest dollars that's like closer to that path of purchase, the better. And again, not to just kind of go back to one of your offerings, but the, commerce media comes to
Feel
mind
free.
because it does allow you to invest dollars to a targeted group of consumers that are like in that purchasing mindset. So it's much closer to that path of purchase, and it allows you to impact consumers at like that moment of truth when they're browsing in that kind of decision making mindset. So those would be my my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I love that concept of it's a Google term, the zero moment of truth, right? Where the consumer is actively ready to make the purchase. I mean, that's obviously where you want to be. I've I've been at Surfside about 18 months, and there's been so many conversations that we've had with brands and retailers in cannabis where they've gone and they've done the splashy thing at some point, or they've gone and partnered with the wrong partner in whatever category. And maybe the splash has been made to some degree, but it's very short-lived, and there's not a lot of, you mentioned ROI, there's not a lot of measurement. There may be like, oh, we got some followers, or we had a lot of people at the event, or whatever it might be, or the celebrity tweeted about it, or whatever it might be, but then it's sort of over, right? And then they're sort of left carrying the bag going, well, how do we keep this momentum? I wouldn't say countless examples of that. It's just a lot of examples of that. And getting back to brass tacks and making sure you are, I think, in the dispensary for the in-dispensary shopper and on the menu for the e-com shopper, that's where you got to start. It just makes total sense. All right, last question. And then, by the way, folks, anyone who's listening live, please feel free to ask any questions on the chat. We'll have a few minutes towards the end here to answer those questions, or for Kevin to answer those questions. So please feel free to shoot them through the chat. So the look ahead question now, Kev, next year or so, 2 years, goodness knows many things may transpire in that time with legislation and so forth as well.
Yep.
But from your perspective, your focus, through the rest of this year, through the end of next year, knowing what you do know, where are you going to spend your time, efforts, and resources?
Yeah, great question. A couple of things kind of come to mind, which probably themes from what I've kind of spoken kind of throughout this conversation. First thing is just continuing to build what I believe and our company believes is the strongest portfolio of brands and products in the industry. Competition in this industry continues to be intense. It will only get more intense as more and more manufacturers get up and running in various states and more dispensaries open, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to stay ahead of the curve, just continuing to innovate, evolve, and just keep our product portfolio fresh and exciting. So we're super pumped about some really exciting initiatives we have to share with everybody kind of down the road here. So that would probably be number one. The second piece, which I'm really focusing on and excited about, is like we're investing quite a bit of time and energy and resources into that market level execution piece that I've spoken about, and really ensuring we have the right boots on the ground and tools set up to be really the best partners for our third-party dispensaries as possible. So that's investing in people that can work in each of our states and become very connected to our third-party retailers, but also it's investing in like tools, data, all that type of stuff, and building out lots of tools that our team can leverage to then share with our retailers so that they can be the best advocates for our product possible. And then probably the last thing would be just being very focused on data-driven decision making. Being just very like efficient in the way that we work and operate. Mm-hmm. Part of being a scaled player is also like finding ways to leverage that scale to be really efficient. So we'll see what happens from you mentioned all the kind of external potential benefits that we could have by some of the things going on regulatory wise, but right now we're just focused on I'm just focused on the things that I can control, and as a company we're focused on the things that we can control, and then if these other benefits come, that'll be icing on the cake.
Awesome. I love, you've talked about data a few times. One question that's come in, there's a few coming in now, which is awesome, is, and this, you may not be able to give all the specifics on this, Kev, honestly, but like, what are the metrics, top metrics, data points that you track and you measure yourself against, or you're measured against? So I assume it's, things like sales volume, new retailers, but can you give the sense of sort of the high level numbers that the data you're using all this data, but what's sort of the output, the end result there?
For sure. I mean, obviously starting with just, we obviously want to grow revenue. So that's the core of what a marketer is looking to do. But just a couple other things, we're very laser focused on market share, ensuring that, we're increasing our brand and product share in the states that we operate in. And then from a investment standpoint, and like the dollars that we're putting out there, we're always looking at return on ad spend where we can, making sure that we're investing the dollars that we have in the most efficient channels that we possibly can, and that's obviously a major focus of ours as well.
Awesome. Another question here from Harrison. Thanks, Harrison. Would either of you have any recommendations for how someone with a more traditional background in media and ad tech, which is both of us, how we can break into the cannabis industry? Kevin, I'll let you go first.
Yeah. So, I would just start by saying, I mentioned at the beginning, like, there's so many parallels to the whether it's traditional media space or, traditional food and beverage space, and being able to leverage that experience as a selling point in this industry is paramount, because you can kind of come in with, a perspective on things that is, very different than someone that might be, more of a veteran in the cannabis industry, and it allows you to come in and bring some of the great things that you've seen in that space, but also, know where you shouldn't bring things into that space, and that kind of perspective is extremely valuable. So that would be my thought, but Anthony, go ahead with anything you have.
I didn't, when I started almost 3 years ago in this industry, I didn't pursue. However, if I was Harrison, I would honestly just be combing the ads in LinkedIn, the job ads. I mean, Verano's posts ads, and everyone, there's lots and lots of ads. And so you just got to look for the role that suits your skill set, and then approach it like you would any other role that you really, really want. Cover letters, getting interviews, interviewing well, showing your passion and interest, even if you don't have the experience. But both of us have come from non-cannabis, and frankly, everyone, well, actually, I'm out here in Vegas right now. I was at dinner with some customers last night, and they are OG. So there are some folks, yes, that have been around a really, really long time. But more and more, obviously, as the industry grows, there's only so many of those folks, right? So more and more people are coming in from outside the industry, and it's certainly not uncommon. But I would just say, look into the companies that you really want to work at. Verano's an amazing company in the space. Find the right role and go for it. Like, put your best foot forward, and if you really want it, whether it takes a week, a month, or a year, you'll find the right role. I mean, it is Kev, you touched on this early. It is a massive growth industry. It's someone actually used the verbiage last night. It's the last of the vices to be professionalized, I think he said. So yeah, huge opportunities in cannabis, lots of jobs out there. So you just got to go for it. Corey, thank you for your question. Long-time big beer person, recently moved into cannabis as well. Thoughts about, Kev, this is definitely one for you. Thoughts about flavor innovation and overall numbers of offerings on the shelf, especially in vape. Do you see higher rates of sales with more or fewer flavor choices?
Great question. And we think a lot about this. Flavors is key in certain categories in this industry as well. I mean, effects are very paramount, and for your more cannabis aficionados, they're going to be more focused on, some of the details of those effects, but especially to like your more, casual, less experienced consumers, you need to have great, compelling strains and flavors to attract them. So we think about that a lot, and we think about how many flavors are the right amount of flavors, how many strains are the right number of strains, and especially when in categories like vapes and edibles where you have a little bit more control over that, we're always trying to ensure that we have the right assortment on shelf. We spent a lot of time racking our brains around that. We've recently expanded our, you had mentioned vape specifically, our vape flavor offerings quite substantially, because we were able to leverage some data that made us understand that we thought there were some white spaces that we weren't capturing. So definitely in the mindset of offering variety. Variety to some extent, we're in the mindset of introducing new variety, but then at the same time analyzing our total portfolio of SKUs and understanding where are there lower performers that we can then eliminate. One, just if they're less appealing to consumers, but also secondarily we're always trying to think about what's operationally efficient. And at some point, you don't want to have endless amount of variety in the market, because then your facilities are too scattered and focused on too many different things. So trying to kind of trim the tail as you innovate with new flavors, and that'll always be a key part of what we do. We're always going to want to drive new news and new things to the market, and then over time keep the portfolio reasonable by kind of trimming maybe some of the older, less relevant items that we have.
Yep, makes sense. Next question from Elise. What methods have you found most valuable to a marketing dispensary itself? How do we get our name out there and build a solid customer base?
So if I'm understanding the question, it's regarding getting is it more around lines of how does the dispensary kind of get there?
Yeah, I think it's more from the retail side, Kevin. I think I'm taking this as a new dispensary. Let's say they're maybe in a competitive market and they're just trying to figure out how to get their name out into the community initially.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, that's not as much of my my bread and butter, but the things that I would want to kind of highlight and note would be, first of all, it's you need to have a great in-store experience. At the end of the day, consumers are going to be exploring dispensaries somewhat based on geography. So if you're in kind of their locale and they're in the cannabis market, they're going to want to, they're more than likely going to at least give your dispensary a try. So the first thing would be make sure that in-store experience, and not only just in-store experience but online experience, is as top-notch as possible, because once those consumers enter your door, you want to make sure you're wowing them and driving them back to your store, because over time there's more and more competition in the market, and as more dispensaries open up in a certain geographic area, that importance of in-store experience and kind of online experience becomes even more valuable. And then the second piece that I would just say is, much like I've been speaking about on the product and brand side of things, which is investing in channels that can be have really strong ROI, can be measurable, etc. I would try to take that same mentality from a retail standpoint. It's going to be very costly to spend a lot of effort buying up every billboard in the in the area, throwing a bunch of super big events, giving out a bunch of free merchandise or et cetera, but you can be much more efficient by finding measured channels digitally and in other means that you can be really smart about targeting specific consumers and spending your dollars as efficiently as possible.
Yep. Great answer. Elise, I'd say, and I'm biased, of course, I'd say find great partners, great marketing advertising partners, and put any data you have to work. Use your first party data to go out there and figure out who your customers, not only who they are, but how do you find other people like them? That's certainly going to help you as well. A couple more questions. We're going to have to wrap up. We've got two more, one from Skip and then one from anonymous attendee. We'll wrap up with that one, Kev. That'll be fun. Skip asks, and it's all in uppercase too, but it's okay. I can read it. It's not. Skip asks, accessories generally account for around 2% of dispensary sales. Do you see value in selling accessories in Verano stores if revenue isn't a big factor? And which types of accessories are offered by Verano?
So first question, absolutely see the value in that. Our retail team has put more emphasis recently on accessories, and I think there's probably 3 reasons for that. There's more, but probably the 3 big reasons for that is, one, yes, it's maybe only a few percentage of revenue, but that revenue is very incremental. It's not like they're, swapping out if they're not buying a lighter from you, or rolling papers from you, or some other piece from you that sells, either going elsewhere or leaving your, not happening at all. So, essentially extremely incremental. 2, it just adds to the overall consumer experience. It gives people something to look at and kind of touch and feel within the dispensary. In our dispensaries, we can't have live product out, on the dispensary floor, but you can with accessories. So it kind of adds a little bit more of a tangible nature to the dispensary. And then 3rd would be, it provides a bit of that like one-stop shop concept. You don't want people going into your dispensary and then going to a smoke shop or something to purchase accessories if possible. So with all that said, we offer a wide variety of accessories within our store. We have some branded things like batteries and lighters and things along those lines, but we also source a lot of accessories from third parties that make sense and fit with things that our consumers would want to have in their in their bag when they leave a Zenly for a move.
Yeah, I mean, from just my direct consumer perspective, if I'm going into a dispensary and I need accessories, I want everything available. I don't want to have to go there and go somewhere else. I'm probably not going to go back if I've got to go somewhere else to get papers, a pipe, a lighter, whatever it is. All right, last one from anonymous attendee. How are you actively combating price compression in different states? And then a note at the end here, Kev, let's get specific, boys. But, Kev, whatever way you want to answer, that's fine.
Yeah, so from a product and brand standpoint, it's a lot of the stuff that I talked about. It's building unique products that have a set of benefits that we believe really cater to a specific consumer, so that they're willing to pay a fair value for those benefits. But then also making sure that we're able to get those benefits communicated, because I think one of the things that has led to some price compression in the industry is that a lot of times on in dispensaries or on dispensary menus, etc., like the best information available to consumers is price and THC percentage, and therefore consumers end up caring about price and THC percentage. But if you can provide more info and education on what's unique about the product, what are the other benefits, you can kind of get consumers out of that that price first mindset. So that would be kind of number one. And then the second thing would be, from a retail standpoint, just being really smart about the types of discounts and promotions and whatnot that that are being run, and that comes with data, right? So over time, trying to make sure that you're running promotions that are very efficient, catering to the right consumers, and not just always resorting to 50% off everything type of things, but finding ways to ensure that you're running the deals and promotions that are attractive to consumers, but also aren't overcompensating or leading to that that discounting everything on deal all the time mentality.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting from our perspective, because we, like you, we're across so many different states, and this concept of price compression or just general market dynamics or strength of the market varies so wildly. Colorado compared to New Jersey, Oregon compared to New York, right? There's just the newer markets, there's less of this pressure. The old ones, there is a bit of a race to the bottom in some of them. Kev, we're at time. So I want to firstly thank everyone who showed up and particularly asked questions. Thank you so much for that. Kev, I want to thank you as well for your time and your insight, your knowledge, your partnership with the team, with Zach and Elise and David and the crew at Verano. Thanks for all your support and partnership. We appreciate it. Really stoked to do this with you today. And I look forward to welcoming everyone to the next Surf Sessions really, really soon. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.